I'm 75. I avoid social gatherings. Here's why aging pushes you towards independence. Have you ever wondered what life will be like when you grow old, or why many elderly people tend to avoid parties, social events, and large gatherings? What does loneliness or solitude truly feel like in later years? There's something fascinating I never considered when I was younger. The older I get, the more I want to slow down. In the past, I thrived on social interactions. I loved meeting friends, engaging in lively conversations, and embarking on exciting trips. I believed that social engagement was the key to a fulfilling life, that the more connections I had, the more valuable and significant I would feel. But when I turned 75, I noticed a profound shift, not in the world around me, but within myself. I gradually lost interest in crowded gatherings and noisy events. I realized that I didn't need to be everywhere, that I didn't have to engage in conversations just to avoid feeling empty. Instead, I found joy in solitude, in moments of quiet, and in appreciating the simple things I once overlooked. At first, I questioned myself. Am I becoming lonely? But then I understood something important. This wasn't loneliness, it was a new kind of freedom. The freedom to choose how I want to live without the pressure to please others or to force myself into spaces that no longer align with who I am. Today I want to share with you 7 reasons why aging naturally leads us toward independence and peace. If you've ever felt guilty about withdrawing from social gatherings, I invite you to explore a new perspective with me, that stepping back isn't a loss, but rather a meaningful choice. 1. Learning to enjoy solitude. When I was younger, I believed that having many friends and attending social events was the key to a joyful and meaningful life. I loved gatherings, long conversations, and the lively energy of being surrounded by people. But as I passed the age of 75, I started feeling exhausted by crowds, by noisy parties. At first, I thought it was just a sign of aging, that maybe I simply needed more rest. But then a deeper fear crept into my mind. Am I becoming lonely? Am I slowly fading into isolation, with no one by my side? I remember one particular moment when an old friend invited me to his birthday party. It was a big celebration, lively, cheerful, exactly the kind of event I used to enjoy. But as I held my phone and read the invitation, I felt my heart beating faster, not out of excitement, but out of anxiety. I imagined myself standing in a crowd, listening to conversations that no longer interested me, forcing a smile while secretly wishing I were at home instead. The thought alone made me feel suffocated. I struggled with myself. Should I go? If I don't, am I isolating myself? But in the end, I quietly set my phone down and chose not to attend. Instead, I spent the evening with a warm cup of tea, an old book, and my own thoughts. At first, I felt uneasy. I feared that I would regret not going, that I would feel lonely. But as I sat there, embracing the stillness around me, I realized something surprising. I wasn't lonely. I was at peace. I no longer needed the validation of a crowd to feel worthy. I didn't have to be everywhere, constantly talking, to prove that I was still part of the world. I came to understand that sometimes the peace within my own soul mattered more than any social gathering. Key lessons. The fear of loneliness is sometimes just a natural shift in how we define happiness. Not every social event brings joy. Sometimes solitude offers a deeper sense of peace. Learning to enjoy your own company is not a sign of weakness, but of growth and freedom. Now I no longer feel afraid when I choose quiet moments over social events. I understand that aging is not about losing relationships, it's about choosing them more wisely, making time for what truly brings happiness. 2. Valuing my energy from anxiety to peace. After learning to embrace solitude, I began to notice something else. My energy was no longer what it used to be. When I was younger, I could spend an entire day bouncing from one social event to another, talking for hours without feeling drained. But now, after just one crowded gathering, I could feel exhausted for the entire next day. At first, I didn't want to accept it. I feared that feeling tired after social events meant I was growing weaker. That age was slowly taking away my vitality. So I pushed myself to attend more gatherings, to engage in more conversations, but the harder I tried, the more depleted I felt. Parties left me with aching legs, a spinning head from all the noise, and a heavy heart from the effort of forcing myself to keep up. One evening, after attending a late-night party, I woke up the next morning feeling completely drained, unwilling to get out of bed. As I looked out the window, I saw the golden sunlight spilling onto my porch and heard the soft chirping of birds. And suddenly I had a realization. This quiet, this calm, was what I truly needed. Not the loud conversations, not the long nights at crowded events, but the stillness, the recovery, the ability to cherish what little energy I had left. From that day forward, I began choosing more carefully how I spent my energy. Instead of large social events, I opted for quiet coffee meetups with close friends. I turned down long, crowded gatherings and instead spent time reading, taking peaceful walks in the park, or simply sitting with my eyes closed, savoring a warm cup of tea. I no longer felt guilty for saying no to invitations that I knew would leave me drained. Instead, I felt at peace. I realized that using my energy wisely didn't mean giving up on life. It meant choosing a way of living that truly suited me. I was no longer afraid of losing my strength. I was simply learning to protect myself, to appreciate the moments that truly mattered. Key lessons. Energy is finite, and aging teaches us how to use it wisely. Not every social event is worth attending. Prioritize the moments that bring genuine joy. Learning to say no to things that exhaust you isn't selfish. It's an act of self-care. Now, I no longer feel regret when I skip a big gathering. I know that by preserving my energy, I can fully enjoy the moments that truly matter, the ones that make me feel whole, happy, and at peace. 3. Keeping only meaningful relationships. As I started valuing my energy more, another question surfaced in my mind. Were the relationships I was trying so hard to maintain truly bringing me joy? For years, I believed that the more friends I kept, the more meaningful my life would be. I made the effort to call, to meet up, even when it drained me. I was afraid that if I didn't keep reaching out, old friends would forget about me, that I would be left behind, alone. I feared the feeling of being forgotten. But over time I realized that not all relationships are worth holding on to. There were people who, after every conversation, left me feeling energized and happy. But there were also those who only brought exhaustion, people who always complained, who only reached out when they needed someone to listen, but never cared in return. I began to understand that friendship should not be a burden, but a connection filled with sincerity and peace. I remember one evening after meeting up with an old friend. We had once been close, but now every conversation was filled with complaints and negativity. I sat through the meeting, trying to be patient, trying to hold on to what we once had. But when I got home, I felt heavy, drained, and uninspired. That night, as I sat in the quiet of my room, I asked myself, am I maintaining this relationship because it truly brings me joy? Or am I just afraid of letting go? I decided to give myself permission to let go. I didn't cut ties completely, but I stopped forcing myself to initiate contact. I stopped pushing myself to maintain something that no longer felt fulfilling. And something unexpected happened. I didn't feel lonely like I had feared. Instead, I felt lighter. My mind felt free. Now I only keep the relationships that truly matter, the people I can talk to freely, who bring warmth and understanding, who make me feel valued rather than just someone they use to unload their burdens. Key lessons. Not every relationship is worth maintaining. Choosing wisely is necessary. True friendship is not an obligation, but a natural connection that brings joy. Letting go does not mean loneliness. It creates space for more meaningful connections. Now I no longer fear losing people. I understand that aging is not about keeping as many people around as possible, but about keeping the ones who truly bring peace and happiness. And because of that, I can live with more serenity and fulfillment, surrounded by what truly deserves my time and energy. 4. Health over social gatherings. After learning to keep only the relationships that truly mattered, I realized something even more important. The most important person I needed to take care of was myself, especially my health. In the past, I was always ready to attend social gatherings, whether it was a late-night party or a crowded get-together. I didn't want to miss out on seeing friends, and I didn't want to be the slow, old person who just stayed home. But then one day, my body started sending me warnings. I remember that night clearly. I attended a birthday party for an old friend. The atmosphere was lively, the music was loud, and conversations overlapped. At first, I tried my best to keep up, but as the night went on, I started feeling dizzy, my body heated up, and my legs felt weak. I forced a smile, continuing to chat, but deep inside, fear crept in. What if I suddenly passed out? What if I became too exhausted to make it home? That night, when I finally got home, I was completely drained. My entire body ached, my head felt heavy, and the next day, I could do nothing but rest. It hit me then. One evening of socializing had cost me an entire week of energy. Was it really worth it? From that moment on, I started prioritizing my health. I no longer forced myself to attend large gatherings if my body wasn't up for it. Instead of noisy late-night events, I opted for calm morning or afternoon coffee meetups where I could actually enjoy meaningful conversations without the overwhelming background noise. I chose peaceful walks and smaller, more intimate gatherings, places where I could truly engage and enjoy myself without feeling physically exhausted. And something incredible happened. I no longer felt drained after social interactions. I no longer feared the aftermath of a long night out. Instead, I felt lighter, healthier, and more in control because I was choosing what truly suited my body and my life. Key lessons. Health is the most valuable asset. Without it, we cannot fully enjoy anything. Not every social event is worth sacrificing energy and well-being. Choosing activities that align with your health is not giving up on life, it's embracing it more wisely. Now I no longer feel guilty when declining an invitation. I know that by protecting my health, I am protecting my life, so that each day I can enjoy it fully without worrying about exhaustion or burnout. 5. The joy of silence. After prioritizing my health and cutting back on unnecessary social gatherings, I experienced another profound change. I learned to appreciate silence. At first, I was afraid. I feared that without attending parties or sitting in crowded cafes with friends, I would become lonely. I worried that the quiet surrounding me wasn't peace, but a sign that my life was slowly fading into isolation. I remember one evening, after declining an invitation to meet friends. There was no laughter, no background chatter, just me, my old armchair, and the soft glow of a warm lamp. I picked up a book I had meant to read for years but never found the time for. At first, I felt restless, as if I were missing out on something important. But as I turned the pages, I found myself completely immersed in the story, fully present in the moment and deeply at ease. From that night on, I realized something important. Silence is not emptiness, it is wholeness. In the following days, I experimented more with silence. I took quiet walks in the park without listening to music or engaging in conversation. I sat on my porch, sipping a warm cup of tea, simply watching the leaves fall. And I realized that I didn't need constant noise to feel alive. Sometimes It was the stillness that made me feel the most connected to myself. The fear of being alone gradually faded. I no longer feared silence. I cherished it. Key lessons. Silence is not something to fear. It is a space where we can truly connect with ourselves. We don't need to fill every moment with social interactions or noise to feel meaningful. Learning to embrace stillness allows us to live more deeply, more peacefully, and more fully. Now, I no longer feel the pressure to engage in endless conversations or keep myself constantly busy. I have found a new joy, a joy that comes from silence, from within. And I know that this is one of the greatest gifts that aging has to offer. 6. The freedom to live on my own terms. After learning to appreciate solitude, I began to realize something I had never fully grasped before. I could do whatever I wanted without needing permission or worrying about others' opinions. But at first, that feeling was uncomfortable. I feared that if I started living for myself, I would be seen as selfish, eccentric, or just an old man unwilling to fit into society. My whole life, I had been conditioned to please others, attending parties just to avoid disappointing people, staying silent in meaningless conversations to keep the peace, nodding in agreement to invitations I didn't truly want to accept. I was always afraid that if I said no, I would lose relationships and become isolated. But one day I realized I no longer wanted to live that way. That day, an old friend invited me on a long trip with a group of mutual friends. In the past, I would have immediately said yes, even if I wasn't particularly excited about it. But this time, I paused. I asked myself, do I really want to go? And the answer was no. I wanted to stay home, to spend time with myself, to enjoy the peace I had found, instead of forcing myself to fit into a crowd that no longer felt right for me. So, I declined. And strangely enough, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel anxious. I just felt relieved. Gradually, I started saying no to more things, social outings I had no interest in, obligations that no longer aligned with me, relationships that had become burdens rather than sources of joy. I learned to respect myself, to honor what I truly wanted. And what I realized was that the people who genuinely cared about me would understand and respect my choices. Now, I feel freer than ever. I no longer need anyone's approval to live my life the way I want. I can spend an entire day reading, tending to my garden, or simply sitting with a cup of tea, enjoying the peace I have finally found. Key lessons. You don't have to live to please others. True happiness comes from being true to yourself. Freedom is not selfish. It is a form of self-respect. The people who truly love you will always honor your decisions. Now I no longer fear being judged or misunderstood. I know that I've traveled a long journey to find true peace, and that is worth more than anything else. 7. Cherishing time as a gift. After learning to live life on my own terms without worrying about others' judgments, I came to a profound realization. Time is the most precious gift I have. But at first I was afraid. I feared that my time was running out, that each passing day was a day I could never get back. When I was younger, I believed I had endless time to travel, to learn, to make friends, to chase my passions. But now, at 75, I feel more than ever that time is no longer as abundant as it once was. That fear kept me awake many nights. I thought about the things I hadn't done, the dreams left unfulfilled, the plans I had postponed for too long. I asked myself, how many years have I wasted on things that didn't truly matter? How much time have I spent pleasing others while neglecting myself? These thoughts overwhelmed me, making me feel as if I had lost too much with no way to get it back. But then one day, as I sat on my porch, watching the sun slowly set behind the trees, a realization washed over me. Time is not something to regret. It is something to cherish. I cannot turn back time, but I can choose to make the most of the time I have left. Instead of dwelling on what's gone, I began focusing on the present. I started spending my days on what truly mattered, cherishing my loved ones, finding joy in small moments I once overlooked. I picked up the book I had meant to read for years. I wrote down beautiful memories. I spent more time sitting under the shade of a tree, feeling the cool breeze and taking deep, calming breaths. And as I did this, the fear of time slipping away slowly faded. I no longer worried about losing time. I was using it fully, meaningfully. Key lessons. Time is not meant for regret. It is meant to be treasured in every moment. We cannot control time, but we can control how we use it. Spending time on what truly matters brings deep peace and fulfillment. Now, I no longer fear that time is moving too fast. I know that each day I am given is a gift, and I will embrace it in the most meaningful way possible. Lesson learned: living fully. After 75. Looking back on my journey, I've come to realize that turning 75 is not about loss, it's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with freedom, peace, and meaningful choices. I used to fear loneliness, but I've learned that embracing solitude doesn't mean being abandoned. It's an opportunity to truly understand myself. I used to worry about not having enough energy to keep up with life, but I've discovered that by prioritizing what truly matters, I can preserve my health and live more fully. I once clung to relationships out of fear of losing my past, but I now understand that only genuine connections hold true value. I used to feel guilty for turning down social gatherings, but I've come to realize that my well-being and inner peace deserve to come first. And finally, I used to fear that time was slipping away too quickly. But now I understand that each day is a gift, and I have the power to decide how to embrace it. Aging is not the end, it's an opportunity to live life on our own terms, free from external expectations or pressures. By listening to ourselves, cherishing every moment, and dedicating time to what truly brings us joy, we can step into our later years with serenity and a profound sense of fulfillment. So, what about you? Are you living the way you truly want? If not, remember this: it's never too late to start.